Peace. Let me know if the sounds are good. Anyone that's here. I expected a couple of students in the classroom, but no one showed up. I was involved in my weekly reading, and then I realized, you know what? Probably should start class now, because usually what would happen is that I would have the joy of just continuing to read and stuff, you know? So it's always different patterns, though, and I just kind of like muse a little bit over here and just, rant a little bit and get to see if anything of this is useful till we get more. You brothers, Wise You, Real Hip Hop 216, Saladin, aka C. Johnson, peace. Right now, I read at least there are 7 books that for whatever reason they're really long, or they're just boring, or not as interesting, and I separate them throughout the week. I only read 7. I separate them throughout the year, 10-page or at the most 12-page blocks. I don't try to do 15. There is one book I'm doing 15 because it's really long, but I try to keep it in the 10 range, because 10 times 50, that's 500 pages. Some books are longer than that, right? Peace, Jarrell. But lately, I usually read at least one of those 7, required books, one book each day, and then I get the weekly amounts for each book. But the problem has been that doing so many other things, I haven't been able to read that much, and you find your flow. I tend to read more when I get those requirements out of the way. So I was in the midst of, I had read 6 of them, and I had 4 left today, because I read 3 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I read, so I had 4 left. So I read 3 of them, but I said, let me not tackle the 4th one. Let me go through this, this one. Supreme Scientist, peace, God. Halftime, peace. Yeah, so I was out last week. Nothing major. Real hip hop. I don't know if that's a joke or not. I do everything at 7 and I control sunlight. I hope you break that rule a little bit. You know what I mean? Because then you'll just be obsessive compulsive and shit. You know what I mean? I got my own obsessive compulsive things too. So yeah, I'm talking a lot though, but there are certain things that I continue to do that I always do a certain way as well. You know what I mean? But yeah, you gotta have some variety. I'm trying to think of one of the things that I do also with reading that I've done is that there are certain books that I read at least once every year. So like As a Man Thinketh, The Art of Peace, Tao Te Ching. There's some that I try to read regularly, like every couple of years. You know what I mean? Like if I forget, you know what I mean? They might be big books, you know what I mean? And you have to revisit some of the books that you were into a couple of years ago. Like, like foundational books, like African Origin of Civilization is a book that I constantly have to quote. So I either have good notes or I got to go back and read this, you know what I'm saying? And read it again, right? So it's a combination of the two, because sometimes, you don't have the desire to read something again. And again, if there's an older book that you need to read again because it's a really big book, that's where you would do that separating thing. You know what I'm saying? So some of those get separated. Like you just read 10 pages a day. Like, you know, I started doing that because I had bought years ago, this is early 2000s. I had bought Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power. And I just bought it because I bought everything Amos Wilson, you know, like, and that seemed like, yo, this, you know, this must have all the answers, because, you know, he doesn't even have a book that is even close to that size, you know, like, so he must have put all his jewels in there, you know. But not to ruin it though, it wasn't as illuminating as the size, you know. But at 600 plus, I think it was 700, I broke it up, and that's how I started to break up certain books throughout the week, you know. And now I read about, like, there's a big rotation of a lot of books, you know. There's a big rotation of 20, maybe 30 books I rotate during a week, you know. Supreme Understanding by Abdul Noor. Yeah, you had told me about that. I don't know about that book, you know. I don't know. I will say this though, if you're trying to study this knowledge, right? A lot of students, this is generic, this is not to you, Real Hip Hop 216, or anybody else, you know. This is from what I've seen though, and then I guarantee that probably some of you, you know, will be like this, you know. First, you're always going to get stuck on certain books, like certain style of book, you know. Like, you know, once I started doing the martial arts and stuff and started to understand not the martial philosophy, but the general Taoist, Zen, Chan, Buddhist philosophies, Confucian ideas, you know, all of the philosophies that spring out of the martial arts became an obsession. So I read a lot of books, and that's why I realized that I was really like robotic. Like, I was only reading one type of book, you know what I mean? And you know, that's why I started to diversify with that, you know what I mean? And switch it up, you know. But the thing is this, right? The type of book that most students usually are reading, they usually favor when they get this knowledge and they actually read books. Because a lot of students, this is really a new thing. I started teaching in 2000, and books were already a big part of my life though. And no one was going to take that away, because that's a big reason why I got here. You know what I mean? If I had a self-styled wisdom, if I developed a self-styled wisdom since then, it's because of all the things I learned in that combination of book reading, learning from a bevy of elders that include, of course, the gods, but also include a lot of other teachers. You know what I mean? I was always blessed with a lot of mentors, you know. But the thing about it, I'm reading your comments, Saladin, while I'm talking. Browder Files, very good book. Survival Strategies for Africans in America. You know what? I heard about that book, but I haven't read that. Gotta go get that. I like Anthony T. Browder as author. And for, you know, young students, old too, of course, but because it has great pictures and variety, and it's actually an engaging read. Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Browder is a great book. I think if a child is in junior high school and stuff, they should have that book, you know. That should be summer reading, you know, definitely. All right, so DBO 89, peace, right? Peace. Okay. I don't know if you're Muslim, Debo 89, or DBO 89. Let me know. I'm getting the assalamu alaikum here. I mean, Jammy Jam, nice, interesting username, Jam E Jam. All right, peace. The usual books that people get lost in, those usually like a couple of kinds though. And the diversity I'm suggesting and asking for is because sometimes these books aren't they don't give you the ammunition that you think you need. Right? You get the knowledge itself, The first thing that's glaring though is that it hits you with the hardest shit. Mathematics and then the knowledge degree in the 1 to 10, right? Student enrollment, right? Who's the original man? And you're out there saying stuff and you can't prove a damn thing. You can't suggest things. You can't even prove that mystery is not just that mystery is unproven, because that's okay with religious people. The whole point is that they can't prove it. You know, and if you feel it though, you're disrespecting people if you don't accept their feelings. You know, it's some bullshit. But once people deal with feelings though, they're gone already. You know what I mean? And to me, once they deal with this knowledge, and then they deal with this knowledge for a long time, and then they revert back to feelings and try to equate the two together, that's, you know, like Souls of Mischief said, that's when you're lost, right? Y'all know about that classic album, Souls of Mischief, you know? It's all that. But I haven't heard, I got a big Hyro collection. I got to get back into that. Keep reminding myself and I keep forgetting. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, right? The first type of book, though, is usually some type of esoteric book. You know what I mean? Whether it's esoteric, I'm going to say positive knowledge or negative knowledge. Esoteric positive knowledge, meaning esoteric ideas about our spirituality, and then negative knowledge that's esoteric, like about like conspiracy theories and the Masons and shit like that. And why do I call that esoteric? Because these books usually don't have any proof. These books usually have, well, like, look, they all got together and they all did this. So what do you think? You know what I mean? And that's why, like, books like you don't see on my book list, like Behold a Pale Horse or anything like that, because I have it, you know, for you students, but peace, God. But if you students wanted it, I could give it to you. But it's nowhere near like a required reading and stuff like that. You know what I mean? The more that you read, the more that you know historically, though, in the devil's civilization, these 6,000 years, and I'm saying definitely in these 6,000 years of oppression of all types and sorts, the prophecy of doom is one of the easiest prophecies to make. You know what I mean? It's like when you do sports, right? There's 20 plus, you know, it's like almost 30 teams in like the leagues, NBA, NFL, baseball, right? In the major, right? So we use that as an example. If you gamble, even if you say like the best team will lose, you still have a really good shot that they'll lose, only because there's so many teams and the probability is very low. And if you have an extremely dominant team, right? Like let's say, you know, during the Jordan Bulls era and stuff like that, you're almost always gonna be right though if you prophesy doom, as in this case, loss for any of the other teams, even in the good ones that could challenge, you know? So, you know, beware of books that are on the negative knowledge, you know, prophecies with a peace, God. Peace to the God. Yeah, I saw him, God. He went to the bathroom, God. Yeah.
I didn't know you were here. I'm sorry to see you, God. Yeah, I'm upset to show you. I don't see you. I'm ready to go tell him. You ain't coming.
No, that's peace, God. Yeah. Peace to the God. Peace to the God. All right. I'm talking to, I got, you know, we got the online now, God, Sun God, right? Yeah, I was waiting for you to take over your mask and everything. How you feeling, God?
Good, God.
All right, I can see you with the cane, though, you know?
Yeah, I just got in an accident with a bike, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I'm just recovering from that, and then my knee blew over water. But I came really to tell you, I saw one of your old videos, God. I was amazed on the technique, God, the karate.
Oh, whoa, yeah, kung fu.
Yeah,
Kung fu,
God.
That's peace, God.
I saw with the genius beat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's old, God.
Mm-hmm. Funny story about that. I don't know if people online have seen that. The video where what we call 180 moves with the jizz's I think it was shadow boxing.
52.
Yeah.
52.
It's
blocks.
not 52. What I learned is Shaolin Kung Fu with a core of Wing Chun, but the style I learned is literally called Biang Xing, which means metamorphosis.
Okay.
So it's metamorphosis. You change into whatever. So it's once we learn how to do the moves, the reasoning behind things, then we can mix and match them with whatever we create, as long as it's useful, as long as it works. You know what I mean? Yeah, I never say I do 52 because it's much more a different dynamic and everything like that. And it definitely is not suited for me, I feel. You know what I mean? But I remember it was really like what do they call it? The Tao Lu. Tao Lu is what they call like when you do your moves, but for art and for show. You know, so some of those moves though, you'd never catch me doing that shit in a fight. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be like jumping and flipping and shit. You know what I mean? I mean, it would be so rare, and then it would drain your energy. Like it's just not realistic. But the Tao Lu is like the artistic version of that. You know, and that's what usually people see when they watch videos. They're seeing that. You know, but that was the display to honor our Seagun, our master teacher, and I was telling you couldn't hear it in the video because he put the music over it. But I had my daughter at the time, who's my oldest daughter. I had her yell out different animals, you know, and I would do the animals, you know. So I was doing animal styles, and she started naming some animals I ain't never heard of. So I had to start thinking of stuff, you know. But it was fun though. I remember that though, you know. Very, very.
Lot of flips too.
Yeah. I do more. You know what? I very rarely do flips now. You know what I'm saying? Partly because the last couple of years I weightlift heavier. You know what I'm saying? So I lift heavy weights, so I could do a flip, but it's gonna be not as like springy. You know, it's not gonna be as springy. You know. And plus, I'm older. You know, so and now I do more with the efficiency of the fight. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You know, so. The hands is better, all of that kind of stuff is what I work for, and the quality of the strength. You know what I mean? So like I'm lighter now, but I could lift heavier than when I started heavy lifting.
But
you know,
I could imagine, like, you know what I'm saying, sometimes flipping like that, it could get you out of a situation depending on how you.
It would depend, yeah. I mean, look, I started training when I was like 24, so my body already. But my body wasn't already that flexible, like, to do so many things. So I don't think I'd be confident to flip out of a situation. You know what I'm saying? But there are certain things I could do on that level, though, that could come close to that, But yeah, you never know. Who knows?
Or even, you know what I'm saying, surrounded and you do one of them roundhouse kick, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that I got.
Somebody,
yeah. No. Trust me,
somebody gonna get hit.
Yeah. The kicks never left though. Those are all in the those are all in the bag though. But
There you go. So I've been following your class lately, and I seen you a lot, because I don't know whatever is the case, that guards or maybe the students that you may have been dealing with 1 and 36, but I also saw a segment that interests me a lot, because when you were speaking about 120, that you were saying is important for everyone to have an understanding of each degree in 120. That's the best part. You know what I'm saying? So that topic interests me more. I mean, like even starting from, because Supreme Mathematics, even with Supreme Mathematics and Supreme Alphabets, there's still an understanding that you still have to go into those simple degrees before you even get into the 1 to 10, the 1 to 36, and the 1 to 14, and things of that nature. Because I remember when I first got the knowledge of myself, and I was manifesting something within my attribute that my Lightner wrote for me. And I got caught up there, and I was already on my 1 to 10, you know what I'm saying? But I got caught up there, but I'm gonna tell you exactly what that attribute said. It said, "I'm son God because I'm the son of man," and then it came in one part of that. I don't even quote it like that no more. When somebody asks me to show and prove my name, God, you know what I'm saying? I keep it simple. You understand? I know what it forms, you know what I'm saying? And I keep it simple, you know. And one of the in the attribute that says some God that said, I made life by compounding molecules into its basic gas elements. So when I was manifesting that, God, imagine as a newborn, you saying some wisdom like that, God, you know you're gonna get questioned. So, you know, I was already on my 1 to 10. That they made me go back to my attribute, God, because everything that you say out your mouth is subjected to show and prove. True indeed or not?
Indeed, yeah. Mm-hmm. Everything, even your name, you know.
Mm-hmm. Even your name, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used to get not confused, but you know, when they used to say like a lot of gods will tell you what's your name. Or before I used to ask God, what's your attribute? And one of the gods was just like, say, Allah has 99 attributes. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, now I get
right. Because remember, some people don't use the word attribute. You don't really hear me saying attribute because my name really isn't an attribute anyway. So it technically doesn't qualify as that. You know what I mean? It's an acronym. It's an acronym. So each letter stands for something. So you can say there's attributes within it. Right? Savior of the universe now shows proves equality of zigzag zig. But I prefer everyone to, you know, always be comfortable saying that they have a name, not an attribute. You know what I mean? Because sometimes too, right? If your attribute is knowledge, sometimes you could also cliche yourself with your own name. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I don't want that to happen with a student. And what I mean by cliche is that in real life situations, you know, you come to the school, your name is knowledge, and you're always trying to learn, right? And it sounds real peace. But then when you're outside, you're trying to manifest this. So now you think you have to make sure you know everything because your name is knowledge, you know? So now you're having a difficulty, you know? A real issue I have with everything is the pitfall of the issue of trying to explain everything. You know, every time we build, we're building. We're not explaining things. We don't try to explain stuff because when you explain stuff, you could explain things wrong and it can make sense. You know, because remember, we deal with a science that's dealing with logic. The first science that we're dealing with is really logic. So when you use mathematics, so when you say, what's today's mathematics? That exercise is actually logic. You know what I mean? So like, what's today's mathematics, God?
Knowledge, understanding.
Right, knowledge, understanding, right? So you say knowledge is an actual truth, right? An actual truth that I understand. So I have a unique insight to it, and now I'm going to live that out. And then now somebody tries to fit that into something. And now they might even be able to prove it's knowledge or that they have a unique insight to it. You know, they're just saying something that no one else said that happens to be there.
I have a question, right? Because remember one time, you know what I'm saying, like God, I took this personal, like, I was like, he said, like, you asked me just now, what's today's mathematics? So I said, today's mathematics, knowledge, understanding. So he comes back and he said, but you got to say what it bonds to, God. Every time that, you know what I'm saying, they ask you what, you know what I'm saying, today's mathematics, you got to also say what it bonds.
If I ask you to build on today's mathematics, then to me, the answer is today's mathematics is knowledge, understanding, all being born to, you know, culture, freedom. However, I didn't ask you that though, God.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't ask you that. I said, what's today's mathematics though?
Exactly.
So it's just, in this case though, you answered it correctly though. You know, like some people don't have a bad dialect between each other. That's 5%. Because we're always looking to bomb. And we're not realizing that, I just answered the question. Don't assume that I don't know. And that's why, like, one of the best etiquettes of those that are supposed to be your brothers or your sisters in this knowledge of self, the first thing is to always ask everybody's name. That sounds like a big deal, but you know, people go in ciphers and they see a flag. They don't ask your name. They don't ask anything. First thing you got to do is exchange names and then exchange what you know. And it's the reasons we do that. Go into a real... Treat the 5% among the 5% like 5%. Like, we tend to go into each other and we tend to inspect people so we could bomb them and then be their over teacher. Like, you know, and I'm saying that like an awkward way because you want to be their teacher. Shouldn't it be that I ask you what you know and everything so we could see what we know together, and then, you know, what we're about, like what kind of interests we have, like what we do together and shit like that, you know?
Exactly.
Because if we were in any other cipher of camaraderie, right? And then like my career is doing, you know, hip hop journalism and writing. If I go to a show, I'm not asking people like, you know, what you did in hip hop. Oh, you ain't did shit like me, you know, like that ain't really how it goes. But among the 5%, that's how we talk to each other. You know what I'm saying? So nobody's finding that camaraderie between each other. You know, like where you at and stuff like that. Oh, who taught you? And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know. And then be a real exchange and like, what does he know? You know, we used to exchange, build with each other. And if my enlightenment's knowledge, me and his enlightenment might have been, let's say, like, you know, Dumar, you know, it was somebody else, Firstborn Prince, or somebody else. We might have tried to exchange like the way we see certain things, or look at each other's degrees, because they're gonna be a little bit, see the differences and stuff. You know what I mean? That's what I mean, you know, and people aren't really like that, so they end up asking their own questions, or they obsess over grammar that actually wasn't incorrect. You know what I'm saying?
Like God, when I be adding on with any brother, I don't add on with him to put him on his square, like basically, or to try to bomb him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? My intentions is like, you know what I'm saying, to add on and whatever degrees that I might not have understanding on, you know what I'm saying, that I could be enlightened on. You understand? That's what I be adding on to, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of degrees in 120, man, that 120 goes through so much history, so much
I was saying this, right? I was saying this, though, that a lot of books, I was talking about books and just musing about the books I was reading, because I wasn't going to go online immediately, and I got into a book, and I was like, you know what, I should probably figure this whole thing out, you know what I mean? Even though you didn't come yet, because I know you were coming. But a lot of books, there are books that I read it once every year, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes if they're short, right? Especially if they're books of understanding, not necessarily like knowledge books, because there's some that are books that are about, that's just straight knowledge and information I like to read every year or every 2 years. But like a book, let's say like The Art of Peace, that's a book of aphorisms. Aphorisms being a collection of sayings of understanding that are written beautifully. That's all it is, aphorism. So if somebody says something beautiful, but it has insight or drops a jewel, it's an aphorism. So you already know that the gods got a whole bunch of those. They just, you know what I mean? So it's just fancy word. But a lot of the old Taoist writings and Buddhist writings are written like that, because they did what we did. They would memorize those aphorisms, you know, like the Tao Te Ching. There's 80 of them. And they're not long, like degrees in 120. So it's easier to memorize that than it is actually to memorize 120.
Oh, so I want to also ask you a question. You know, like when you ever seen Louis Farrakhan videos?
Indeed, of course.
Okay, so you know when he speaks about, you know, in Genesis, the Bible, that he speaks about, he's like, well, let me make it clear to you, right? So he used the example as like, you know what I'm saying, like in the beginning of the Bible, when it speaks about Genesis, that God made man in his own image. Right. You know what I'm saying? So he's where he's coming with it from is, yeah, cool. You know what I'm saying? He's talking about what God they talking about. You see, because Muslims is not like us as far as like you know, the Muslim is not like us, because we know that the true and living God is the black man. You know what I'm saying? They praise Allah as a mystery God. Right. They pray 5 times a day, so we don't do that. So you know what I'm saying? They understand and might, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna say that Minister Louis Farrakhan understanding is wrong, because he's, you know, he's well informed and all, and all of that, you know, got to do with the 120 pieces where the lessons came from. But you know, a lot of brothers might interpret it wrong, because a lot of brothers do not bear witness to the Bible, and a lot of brothers want to get an understanding from how you see it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you go into some degrees and you try to break the understanding down like that, what happens is like some brother might not agree with you.
Right.
You understand where I'm coming from, bro?
Depending on what you use to show and prove, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of things within that name alone, Yaakov, that you have to know. The little history about it.
Yeah. See, like, for example, like, because I was talking about the Taoist teachings, things like that. Those aren't really based on interpretation. They're based on they're more philosophical. So they don't really have a premise of a mystery or story it's based on.
Okay.
You know, later Taoist writings do, but the canon, the main canon, they don't really have those. There are no characters. Okay. There are no individuals and there are no stories. You know what I mean? There is just mentalities and thoughts about philosophical ideas. And that's why it breaches into so many things. Like, that's why I'm very okay. And especially for the brothers that train with me, and anybody that I train, they got to read certain martial philosophical texts, that are Taoists, that are Buddhists and stuff like that, because they have nothing to do with individuals. Like, there's no stories in the Tao Te Ching. You know what I mean? It has to do with ideas. You know what I mean? And so they end up being universal and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, for example, in the translation I like best of the Tao Te Ching, which is the John C.H. Wu, there were 3 aphorisms out of the 80 that ask this question and answer it the same way.
Okay.
How do I know what is all around me, right? Or, in other words, right, they ask also, how do I know what is true? And then the answer continues to be by what is within me. So like a lot of the ancient, especially the Chinese Chinese Taoists, which is Taoist, but Chinese Buddhists, which is Chan. Okay, Zen is Japanese, but especially the Chinese, the mentality is the inner to the outer. So many of the activities are not based on dealing with a mystery. They're dealing with your own mind power and your own imagination to see it. You know what I mean? And that's why they're so applicable to what we do. The East, they knew that the original man was God. It's just expressed in different ways, But with these aphorisms or anything else, I tend to do, or as a man thinketh, right? Because that's based, by the way, on the Dhammapada. Dhamma being righteous, Pada path. And those are the sayings of the Buddha. And, supposedly, but they're all Jews. But that's where as a man thinketh gets it. So that, for example, that first quote that is unattributed, it's just, in traditional white man parlance, they quote something, but they don't tell you where it's from. When they say that the mind, right? The mind in all things are like the ox in the cart. You know what I mean? So if the mind is likened to the ox and everything else is the cart, that means that the mind is causing everything. You know what I mean? That quote, which I butchered very badly, is from the Dhammapada. And that's the basis of As a Man Thinketh. It's just that As a Man Thinketh is written in English that's more, less artistic. So it's easier as a first book. You know what I mean? But a lot of times I'll go through certain books that are short, that are built like that. Mm-hmm. A lot of aphoristic literature, especially. And I'll write something about each thing, my perception of each single page, especially if it's short enough. So I do this with the Tao. I do this with the Dhammapada, Art of Peace. I even do it with the chapters, or like I'll break it into like pages, sets of pages, like each 2 or 3 pages of As a Man Thinketh, because it's not a long book. And I'll read it again, but while I'm reading it, I'm writing down my understanding or my thoughts. The reason I'm saying this is the exercise, because when you go through 120, when you have all of 120, doesn't mean that you have real useful understanding. You might have understanding that got you to the lapel, but you don't have understanding that you can do anything with, because that's not really how you're supposed to be taught. You're not going to get your lapel for having a useful understanding for every single degree. You're going to get, that's unfair, because you got to live a little bit. Mm-hmm. You got to have the time to research all this information. You just don't have enough time. If you did that with the 1 to 40, where every understanding had to be somewhat useful, you'd have to technically not just memorize 1 to 40, but you probably have to study 1 to 40 for about 5 serious years. I don't mean like 5, hood years, not 5 hood years. You know what I'm saying? Like where you do what you do, you smoke, I'm talking about like PhD years. Like you're not gonna have it. Some of them you'll be like. So what I do often is I go through all of 120 and do this exercise where I'm going through all of 120 and do at least once a year, where I'm gonna write about. I'm not gonna do today's math or today's degree in my journal. When I'm doing this, every day is about going to the degree I'm up to, quote it, right? So there'll be a lot of scribbles if I quote it wrong and everything, and to write it all over again and everything, right? And then I give my understanding of that degree. And if I'm stuck on an understanding, I write down the reasons why it's not coming to me, like what I don't know, like, or literally say it, like this stupid sentence is stumping me, or I feel like I don't have good research on, let's say, like, I don't know, like, Jebus Selim and Oriel. Like, it could be, I hate that degree, by the way.
And you know what,
I hate
God?
that degree.
Exactly.
So it always comes to my head, though, because it has so much information, but to me, it doesn't give me that much understanding of it. You know what I mean?
And that's the
it has more. I've done more historical research on it, and yeah, they shielded, dirty religion. Yes, that's what they do. We heavily quote it, but it doesn't give me that much, but it gives me a lot of research. So I've always hated that degree, especially when I was learning it. And so you go into these things. You know what I'm saying? You go into them and you write down what you don't know. Like, let me segue into something that I was going to build on with the students online. Everyone that has handed me the homework, it's the long-standing homework in my class forever. You can do it, but it'll never be done. You know what I'm saying? And the homework is, let me see how quote it exactly, right? The homework is, make a list of the criteria of what Allah, the true and living God, must have to be such. In other words, what are the list of things that he must be in order to be the true and living God? See? And one of the mistakes that people make, though, is that they write me a definitive assignment. Like, I feel that Allah, to be God, has to be this. And this is why he's this. And I've done the assignment. And I keep saying, and I said it last week, is that one aspect that's being missing is that you're doing it wrong if you don't have in that criteria things that you feel have to be proven for the black man to be God, but that you don't know. It isn't supposed to be just what you think you know that gets you by. It's a help assignment. It's one that you do that you could hand into me so we could build. But it's one where you go, listen, I think that because the original man is the maker and owner of the entire universe, then he should be made of the chemical composition of the entire universe. But I don't really understand how that is so. Right? Let's say that's the thing. You don't leave it off. That's exactly what should be in there. It should be a working assignment. I got one that was saying that Allah should be sincere, or I think. The truth is, and I'll be harsh, no one gives a damn about what you think Allah should be. You see? That's not why we're here. Because what you were saying, right? If that was the case, so we could all go to the mosque. Because remember, understand this, right? Nation of Islam says that Allah is a person and came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. Their lessons still say that the black man is God, but you are a Muslim. You are submitting to the will of Allah, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, right? So that means that someone who is Allah, and there's a possibility and a reality that, as he said, because he talked about Allah forthcoming, so it's not just going to be him. He's coming, literally. But it's right, you not now, this generation.
You online, God?
Say again? Yeah, I'm online at the same time. That's right, yeah. You know? And it's not you, it's not you right now. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest problem the father had. Like, it's gonna be the black man, it's gonna be the tribe of Shabazz they call when they get awakened. But it's not each and every one of these individual Muslims. They're submitted to the will of Allah who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. And then what happens is that you see how it's easily manipulated, because it's still not them, because instead of waiting for the tribe of Shabazz to emerge themselves as God, they are now waiting for Fard to come back, which actually goes against the teachings that were in all of the original works of Elijah Muhammad. Because when he talks about Allah forthcoming, though, he actually is not talking about Fard coming back again. You know, he's not talking about an encore. He's talking about the definitiveness of Allah as the black man coming. You see? That tribe of Shabazz being fully awakened. So the truth is, we could also argue that much of the entire interpretation of the Nation of Islam today is actually incorrect by their own standards of what Elijah was talking about. So you tell me who's wrong. You know what I mean? So that's a big problem and stuff. You know what I mean? And so when you build with the degrees, I want the students to like actually be engaged as a student. Like, I want you to figure out what you don't know. Like, actually have lists of things that you don't know nothing about. Because that's why books are so important. That's why I make such a big deal out of books. Because when you buy a book, you don't go into a bookstore and you get a whole bunch of books and blow all types of money on books that you know and it's like easy for you, right? You're like, I don't need that. I got this. I got that. You get something that's a little bit harder, something challenging. So you are a teacher when you pick a book, a student when you read the book, right? That type of mentality got to be when you go through the 120, though. You got to be able to try to put the confusion you have into some type of words, because that helps you develop your question for the teacher, the enlightener, the builder that you're building with, right? And it also helps you do better research. You know, it's like this, like Google, like, you know, you can find a whole bunch of stuff, but if you don't know what to say to it, you ain't gonna get nothing. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like people say, I want to hear new music, but they don't know what to say into the thing. And that's why the add-on that added on to the Google was the use of the algorithms. Because now they tell you, like, what? Just give me a couple of things that you already like, and now I'll give you things that you ought to know. See? But to deal with this knowledge itself, we're going into areas, it sounds like Star Trek-y, but that where no man has gone. Like, no one has gone. No one goes there. You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to be able to get an algorithm to get you like-minded questions and answers. You have to be able to figure out your questions. So when you make that list of Allah, like, you got to make it all. Like, I like to use all the sciences as my first criteria. So biochemistry, right? Allah got to be made of the supreme biochemistry that exists in all of the universe, but also it exists in him. But he also has the ability to control and manipulate those chemicals biochemically, right? I'm not answering them. I'm just listening, right? So that goes biochemistry. That goes into chemistry, right? Cosmology, the origins of the universe, though, right? He has to be somewhere proven to be in the origins of the universe, right? And then that links you to quantum mechanics, which is the study of the very small, because the beginnings of the universe start with the speck of dust, they say, the very small. And then when you study quantum mechanics, you're studying that the very small, though, is influenced and actually created by thought, from energy to matter. Right? So now you're linking the sciences. This is what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And then you want to think of, like, you know, go through the degrees. Well, who is the father of civilization? So you have to be the father of civilization, right? So then now you get the books that go with that. And, you know, for those who know, father of civilization is something that the father added. You know what I mean? So it's a big deal. You know what I mean? And it's crazy that he added that. And then the anthropology and the archaeology of our peoples and our ancestors became the major works to come out in the next couple of years. The Black Books movement. You know, it just bugs me out how in tune the father was with a lot of shit. It was crazy. Then you want to study other sciences like the burgeoning science of neurology, right? Because if you're saying that the mind creates everything, then you also want to study neurology, right? How is the mind supreme, though? How does it make thought? How does it develop itself? You know what I'm saying? And then the sciences of the brain and the mind, the concepts. What is the difference between brain and mind? You know, and all of that, right? So you want to study all of these things from not just the metaphysical level, but from the technical level of science that's going on now, This is what I mean. You got to go through all these sciences. So a lot of people answered the homework socially. Like Allah is a true and living God, like a upright, righteous man.
Mhm.
That's good. But the truth is that doesn't take away the criteria. You could include a lot of things in that, because I could go find you some righteous, upright white men. You know what I'm saying? That,
Exactly.
you know, and not even people that got this nonsense of, like, you know, as 5%ers. What about white men that realize that things are wrong and that their people's history is probably one of the major reasons why everything is corrupt today? And they could be religious or they could not be religious, but they're following certain guidelines. You know what I'm saying? They're following certain mores or spiritualities that keep them on a straight and narrow, right? You never know. So that criteria is not distinct enough. You know what I'm saying? And then at the same time, though, then you always gotta say, we say the black man is God and the black woman is the earth, though. So now we have to find the reasons between those two. You know what I'm saying? Right? So I had a good sister tell me that everything starts with the feminine, and I was like, what spark came through the feminine? That's it. So you need what spark? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's nothing in the studies, and you know, a lot of people use a lot of Eastern teachings. There's nothing in the Eastern teachings that say everything originated in the female. None. You know what I mean? And if you say the Hindu ones, or you say any of those, or the Brahmin, you're manipulating them. You're manipulating later sex, or you know, you could find stuff. You know what I mean? Because all of the societies, when the devil was made, this is a side note, when the devil was made, the societies that the devil came to conquer and merge with our people to become a half original population, to become larger,
Mhm.
right? And that becomes why the Middle East and stuff and the half original populations there are so important and such a such a big issue, besides where they are and what's there. But the societies that they were conquering and going down into Africa, that's described the destruction of black civilization by Chancellor Williams, they're all matriarchal societies. If you go throughout the East, Japan, before Japan becomes, led by the samurai and the ways of the Bushido, the way of Bushido, the Chinese, they're all matriarchal societies. You know what I mean? That's why the great Genghis Khan, though, right? My favorite conqueror of all time. He was able to conquer so much, though, because it's very easy to run through matriarchal societies. You know what I mean? Not that he couldn't. I'm not saying that. Not that he couldn't if they were patriarchal, but he was able to run through them because they were matriarchal. So the truth is that society that is matriarchal or patriarchal are too lopsided. Matriarchal doesn't mean that they're all led by females. It means that they're led by a feminine nature, meaning very receiving, very allowing. So like, let's say like your borders, you'd let anybody in. You wouldn't have much, control. You wouldn't have, right? Whereas patriarchal is not only that you shut everything down, you're on the offensive. You're trying to take over other shit and trying to bombard shit. A lot of things with Genghis Khan is that he was very patriarchal in the sense of going there and making his empire the longest contiguous empire ever. Contiguous means without a break. So you could, let's say you control
What was his name again?
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan?
Yeah, Genghis Khan.
Let's
say you control the Mongolian Empire, the Mongol Empire. Let's say you control South America and Africa, all of that. It wouldn't be contiguous because there's breaks, the ocean and all that. But he controlled it all the way throughout nearly the entire East Zone. He didn't really step into Europe because he didn't want to, He thought it was too much problems, He wasn't really wrong with that, you know what I mean? But for what I read, it seemed like it was possible. It just didn't want to. But the thing about him that was a blend, what they were doing, that was a blend of matriarchal, patriarchal, is that they were conquering. So that's patriarchal because they're extending their empire. But when they conquered them, they didn't destroy what was there. They adapted the language and the culture and the education and then adapted. So like, let's say if they conquered a land that had a better writing system, he actually was ditching the writing system that they had and using theirs. So it's very interesting. You know what I'm saying? So he was interested in getting like the best part and discarding the worst, you know? So a lot of people don't know that stuff, you know what I mean? And they, you know.
So what I was gonna ask you, right? Because there's I asked a few gods, right, about Jesus. The year he was born.
Right.
Do you have any lessons, you know what I'm saying? With his history, where he was born, what he did, and things of that nature, right? Also Jesus, Salem, and Ariel, or brothers got it, Oriel. How do you have it in your lessons, Ariel or Oriel?
No, Oriel.
Oriel. Okay, some lessons there's Ariel.
I never seen an Ariel though. I gotta look into that in the other ones I have, but I never seen Ariel.
So
that might be a vicious typo.
So you know, somebody told me that Jesus was born according to the Asiatic calendar in 1308, and he only lived 33 years, and you know, it's reference to go into the Bible that speaks about Jesus' hair being wool and his skin being bronze.
Right. Revelations, right?
Revelations, you know what I'm saying? And things of that nature where, you know, but I would like to get I was looking for the book, the secret relationship between blacks.
There's a lot. I think there's at least 3 parts to that. Yeah, I have all of them.
Okay, I'm looking
digitally. I have them digitally.
Because I know that's gonna give me a more broader understanding.
Yeah. I haven't read through all of them, but they got a lot of information, you know.
Concerning that power degree on 1 of 14, right?
Definitely. You kind of have to end up getting in there because it's, you know, you get into the Jews, and whenever you talk deep about the Jews and blacks, you got to be getting into Jesus. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, definitely. For anybody that wanted those, I have those. You know what I mean? They're really big books, though. They're big as hell. You know what I mean? But let me see some of the comments here. See what people are saying, what the students are saying here, because I left them. Okay. Wise, you said today's math is knowledge, understanding, born culture, freedom. How I see today's life is to know and see the reality of I God and be the one to free self from being blind, deaf, and dumb. That's peace, right? But see, I want you to build in such a way, like, you notice that build is not wrong, right? But it's kind of like he's building like he's still 85. You know? So like, when are we gonna build when are you not gonna be 85? Like what would you have to do now? Like, because I always want you to take your build that you would say to someone, like another God or whatever like that, but then break it down to like yourself. Like, what am I gonna do with this build today for myself? Like, then look, he said, know and see, right? 1 and 3, the reality of I God, and be the one to free self from being blind, deaf, and dumb. What are the things that are still trapping you from being blind, deaf, and dumb that you would say that build? So that's the issue that I have. So I want you to look at the build that you have and see, is it really useful to you in this day and time? Or is it just a good answer? You see what I'm saying? And that's the thing about the classroom. We have answers though, but we want to be able to have like things that we could use. This shit is a waste of time though if you're not using it. Like, if you don't wake up and you look at the day's math and you go, like, how could I use this? Like, how is it useful? You know what I mean? Like, if you look knowledge, understanding, like, am I getting a lot of knowledge? And is it actually translating with the understanding I already have? Because those would be the building blocks of life. You keep getting knowledge and it's attaching to all the understanding that you have so far. And this becomes your way of life. So are these things attaching themselves together? Or is it very awkward where every time I learn something, I'm confused about what I thought I understood? Because that means that what you thought you understood isn't really understanding. You see, this is the kind of question I would have when I deal with mathematics when I wake up. Because I'm not 85 though. I'm not 85. You know what I'm saying? I'm not freeing myself from being blind, deaf, and dumb. But, you know, so like, I just want you to be more articulate with that and come up with like, ways that it could be useful in your own daily life. A lot of times we think of that build to say to the teacher or to say to other gods and stuff. A lot of times though, I don't do that. A lot of it is because I'm older, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of it is because if people even know who I am though, they know that I'm here teaching. So I ain't gonna be inspected unless it's my elders. And my elders though, I'm respectful. I have a build that answers things, and shows them that I still know and study. But my questions to myself are about, well, how could I use this though? Instead of wasting my own time, because if I do this like a robot, I'll only teach it like a robot. And then everybody be robots and stuff, and it won't work. You know what I mean? But it's still correct. The build is still correct. This is the difference between right and exact. Be exact with your life, right? Wise you also, okay? I think you were answering somebody here. All right, a lot of peace. All right. Okay. All right.
Self-magnetic is on there.
There's a magnetic Allah, but that's not self-magnetic. Yeah, magnetic Allah. Oh yeah, that's the God. Yeah, that's my brother right there. Yeah, we got to do some hip hop shit together. I gotta.
Now that you're speaking about that God, word God, you know what I'm saying? Somebody gave me some plus lessons, right?
I see you, Saladin.
And somebody gave me some plus lessons, and I seen mathematics in Spanish. And I just was like looking at it, and I said, "Oh, conocimiento es saber mirar, observar, respetar." And I just started I just did it like a rap, God. You know what I'm saying? Like I did it like basically like a rap.
There's one of my brothers. He's not online now. Infinite Mind. He's taught a lot of I taught him, and he's taught him a ton of people, and he's gone into Mexico and everything. He's building a lot of gods, but he actually knows the Spanish really well. I'm not. I can get every salsa lyric out there, but I'm not on that level where I even read. You know what I mean? The best I could read is I'll read Spanish poetry of a high level, like Neruda and things like that. But I can't. I still have difficulty reading like a novel or things like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
But and I speak it slowly because the vocabulary doesn't come to me quick. But Spanish poetry is probably what I enjoy reading the most, though.
You know what?
But yeah. But what I was saying was that he's actually translating all of 120.
Oh,
he's working on that, and he's translated passages in Message to the Black Man that are like the most crucial ones, the ones that you need to know.
Yeah.
He's translating that, so there's a lot of good work that the God is doing. You know what I mean? As always, But
definitely, because I looked at the plus degree, and I said, it had it like conocimiento, sabiduría, entendimiento, cultura y libertad, and I was like saying, okay, so the mathematics is here. All I gotta do, I already know the definitions and what they mean and how to apply them and everything. I think that I could write the manifestation myself. I'm sure. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like, if somebody give you the mathematics, right, but they don't give you no definition to them. Like a lot of brothers get the knowledge like that. They just get knowledge, wisdom, and understanding all the way to born or cipher, but they don't get no meaning to it. You understand where I'm coming from? So they have to do it on their own. That would have been difficult for me at the time when I got knowledge and stuff. Somebody will give me some just like the way numerically without no definition. You understand?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I got
harder.
Right. When I got Supreme Math and everything, I didn't get anything.
Nothing.
I didn't get anything though. You know what I'm saying? So we had to do it from the get.
You had,
but
you had to come up with your own definition.
Right. I mean, he would say his. He would say his. I get. I would write down his, but knowledge me was always, he demanded a unique build on it.
Yeah, your own.
Yeah, right. And that's why I impressed that so much. But Supreme Scientist was noting that his says Ariel, A with an A, also, and that is the correct spelling.
Okay.
I've always been. It's probably the degree that I'm most lax with. I don't like that degree. I hate that degree. For some reason, I just don't like it. And I've never researched it as much as other degrees. You know what I mean? So I never even researched. But mine's, I will research to see how that is the incorrect spelling. Because I do have the O. I do have the O. And by the way, if I was looking for stuff with that spelling, that's probably why I have such bad research on it. Because I was researching all these years with the wrong spelling.
Because I seen it with the O and I seen it with the A too.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember it with the A, but I don't have the A. But Saladin asks, do you have to be religious to be moral? See, you got to understand that, like, everybody looks at religion like evil, and it's evil. Yeah. It's how people control the populace. But you got to understand that if you were running it, if you were the king, you were supposed to, because you have to look at everything through the eyes of a king. In other words, like now, we're dealing with politics, right? Who's going to be the president, who's not, and shit like that. And I'm going to build on a little bit about that so that way we can put it in the context, right? And my perspectives on that. But you should look at everything as a king. The knowledge of yourself and the knowledge of the people is how you develop a way of life that can be given to all people. Like, what is the way? What is the way you're going to give everybody? Because we have to actually have the responsibility for all things. So when you start to look at things, you realize that, listen, religion is used, we immediately see it's used to oppress because we know it's not true. So because it's not true and it's a lie, then we're like, oh, it's bad, right? But that doesn't mean that it may not be useful and the only thing that they could use. They couldn't tell the truth because then they wouldn't be able to rule. So now they have to make a system, and they realize that if everyone is chaotically, right, meaning that their weakness is just allowed to fester and has no direction, it'll all lead to wickedness. Remember, there's no devil that's wicked. They have to do stuff first. The devil is all the ones that were grafted are just weak, but they're prone to wickedness because of the conditions. And because their conditions physically are so weak, they almost always are going to be wicked. So what do? You need a society that controls their urges by giving them rules and regulations. That's why the Jewish culture is so important, because it's one of the cultures that was given to them that they actually adhered to and that they still adhere to. You know what I mean? That's why it's always like I like to say fail-safe for European civilization, for the westernized world. You know what I mean? Even though they hate Jews and they keep them under the thing, it's really a fail-safe, you know, because it's the only one where they keep their rules and regulations and have some kind of modicum of society. I'm not going to say civilization, but society. And they don't immediately always need the original people to engage them. They can engage them indirectly. They can bloodsuck them indirectly. They don't need to. Whereas like all the other societies, really every other European society like that's controlling or whatever, need mass amounts of original people to engage and bring life to the society. Right? It's an interesting dynamic. That's why Jewish communities can, you know, lay in and they can be their own separate entities and stuff, right? But these religions, right? These religions. So I'm gonna take note of that, Supreme Scientist. These religions are actually useful. If you were running a population, you would need some type of system to get the people to deal with certain morals and ethics. And how do you people deal with morals and ethics? Well, they need to be reminded that they exist at certain turns where life becomes difficult, especially the weaker the people. See? So we could always argue that while we could argue morally that no society of humanity deserves to be led by lies, we also could say that certain peoples need to be led by rules and regulations that are attached to ethics and morals. That's what religion becomes. Because if you take away the answers to who is God, what do you have left? You have a list of rules, you have a list of ethics, and you have reasonings. You see what I'm saying? And
we got ethics and morals too.
That's right. We have very deliberate ethics and morals on a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Right? And The difference is whether the society goes about proving that they ought to be. You see, the weaker the peoples. That means weaker mentally. They won't always bear witness to the long-term effect of things, but their immediate gain of things. You know, so they won't be led by, like, let's say, Sufic orders that used to say, like, you only do righteousness just for you. There's no heavenly reward or anything. You do it because it is the right thing. Mm-hmm. If the person is weak and he barely lives, he has trouble surviving because he's weak, that don't mean anything to him. He's going to just do whatever. So you need certain things in place. So I would say that a large part of the population cannot be moral without certain rules and regulations, but they can be without being religious, meaning the lie about a mystery God. You see? But they can actually follow, but there can be, and often there might have to be a system where they follow moral and ethical rules and regulations as a religion. Like, this is what you have to do. They're not doing it just because it's right, but because this is what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Or how you call it, or you could relate that even to the 120 when they say, because they was taught by the devil when they were babies. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what they was taught. But you know, I don't even like to use the word belief a lot. You know what I'm saying? You know, because like I watch my vocabulary because but that's what the people believe in. You know what I'm saying? And belief isn't 120, but usually when I'm building, I usually don't use that word.
Calm Islami said, I see a demarcation here between the Jews and the original man. Yes, because obviously I'm using Jews in the current state of Jews. I'm using Jews as like I'm talking about the Khazars. I'm talking about the newer Jews. You know what I'm saying? If you want the remix Jews, like I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like. Yeah, the remix. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about like the Jews that Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinin was talking about. The original Black Hebrews and such. So obviously, you know what I mean. But I'm talking about those. Yeah, and I was hoping that everyone get the context because I'm talking about the European. I was talking about European societies, and then I talked about the Jews. So obviously, I was still talking about the European. But the thing is, though, is that a lot of people be embracing, like, yeah, I'm an original Black Jew from the original Black Hebrews. Y'all don't know anything about what those original Black Hebrews were doing. Their culture, their lifestyle, just like people go, I'm an original Black Commission. Y'all don't know anything about what they was living daily. And what when the first question you should ask is what they did to end up here, because they all got conquered, through some kind of flaw in their own belief system, in their own thought system. So it's very important. Let me see comment. Right, but isn't the degree referencing biblical Israelites who founded Jerusalem? First off, I wasn't talking about the degree when I'm talking about that, but yeah, so I'm not talking. I was talking about something else, so I'm not really I wasn't talking about the power degree in the 1 to 14. The Jebusites were the original people of the land before the Israelites under Joshua slaughtered them and took over the land. Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing any of that. I'm not talking about the degree. So you lost my train of thought, though. I may have jumped to make a point. You know what I mean? I'm talking about all those people that end up founding today's Israel. I'm not talking about, and I wasn't talking about the power degree. So it just happened that in this case, though, we're talking about morals and ethics, though. Yeah, no, that's peace, calm, Islam. Yeah, that's why, no, that's peace, yeah. But again, those degrees are very tricky. You know what I'm saying? Those degrees are very tricky. Anytime, always look with. One thing about people when they study like anything in the Middle East historically, which includes Jews, the Black Hebrews, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinin's work, whatever it is, the Khazars, right, those conquering whites, I never take anything I read, though, as the definitive statement. And I never take it as like absolute, because there is better knowledge and better research about ancient Kemet than there is, though, about the Black Hebrews. Just because a time period is older doesn't mean they don't have better research. Why do I say that? Because in those times, in those periods, there's a lot of confusion, though, of what is original. And our terms of what we consider Black, let's say just not just us, but like because we consider Black, brown, and yellow original Black men. Well, I'm talking about today's standards, general standards. Even that's an argument, but general standards, because there's so much confusion in it. Just like if you go through the Ivan Van Sertima book, the Golden Age of, not the Moor. I think it's the Golden Age of Moor. In there, where could it be? The African presence in early Europe, right? All these books, a lot of times they'll talk about the Middle East and stuff. They have to talk about that combined, like who was white, who wasn't, and they can't even decide about the Berbers. You know what I mean? And they have
what?
The Berbers, the people called the Berbers, because they don't know if it was referencing white people that were barbarians, or if it was later scholars, white scholars, that were defining original peoples of different shades as barbarians. And so they called them Berbers, because, a lot of history written by whites, though, they were just using, a lot of their language, though, is racist, of course. So that's a good example of the arguments we could be dealing with here. Because of the half original nature, technically, not mentally or even how we deal with it, but the idea of the mix of Black and white and all of those realities that make up the conquering of Africa, that history is always going to have a lot of confusion and needs countless sources and not just one source. You know what I'm saying? And it certainly can't just be a quick matchup explanation with the Bible. You know what I mean? That's why, it can't, because the Bible already has too many alterations, But let me see. Saldi said, "Peace. Could you break down the 16 shades?" That was a question I had last week.
16 what?
Shades. The 16 shades of the original man, right? Black, brown, yellow, represented in the universal flag as the 8 points, and each point is broken down as black and gold.
Concept, black, brown, yellow.
Black, brown, yellow.
And red.
No.
Oh yeah.
The father didn't teach red.
Okay.
Red, technically, see, here's why I don't use red, because red, not that red wasn't used like in a lot of NOI language and stuff, even though I don't necessarily remember reading it from Elijah, although he may have mentioned it. Red is a very confusing. It's said to be some gods who build, it's a combination of original, like a mulatto version of an odd sort. When you deal with red, dealing with the Native American, though, you also come into confusion too, because a lot of the etymology of red also means the name that they just gave the original peoples because they were scalping them, and they became red men because that's how they terrorized the indigenous populations, right? The bloody scalping, because scalping was invented by the white man. They would allow them to get paid for each head. So what's a better way to transport heads but by just collecting the scalp, right? You have proof of their hair texture, and you don't have to bring a whole body with you, and they would kill anything, men, women, children, babies, right? Because they get paid. And it serves the purposes of the society because it drives fear into keeping the Indians out. In fact, this is so important that the early newspapers in America are actually founded because there were information sheets of where Native American tribes were and their moves. That's how newspapers originated, and that's how the post office originated, because the post office was the carrier that was delivering newspapers, right? So that's like the most important, service that the U.S. has built, you know what I mean? But that information, But the 16 shades is represented on the flag, though. The 8 points on the sun. Each point is broken up black and yellow black to yellow. So 8 times 2 is 16, and that's where the 16 shades come in. There's not distinct. There's not a name for each of the 16. If somebody does that, they're being an idiot. You know what I mean? The idea is, though, is that it is a large spectrum. You know what I'm saying? Some people will build that like whether you're a black, brown, or yellow seed isn't just who you are, like what you look like, but also where you're from, a combination. So I might be seen as a yellow seed, especially in the winter, right? When I get all light-skinned in the cold. Some elders, like let's say Infinite Al-Jamar, I would always be a brown seed to him because I come from Latin America or the Latin Caribbean particularly, right? Whereas like the Japanese, the Chinese, East Asian, like that are always the yellow. You know what I mean? So it depends on how you build. Some of us don't keep it simple, and it's just like the shade that you are. You know what I mean? So if you hear somebody say like, yeah, I'm the if I was to build and honor both those concepts, I would say something like I'm an understanding seed. I'm an understanding seed of the brown. You know what I mean? Because I'm under the brown. You know. But I could also say I'm a brown seed, you know what I mean? To me, it doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? Like, as far as like socially and genetically, obviously genetically, we're all the black man. But socially and phenotypically, it merges easy for me to say I'm a brown man, right? Because it fits both, it's easy, you know what I mean? But that's all that means, though. There aren't like a number of, you know, the first shade is called this, the first shade, you know, this. That's P.E.A.C.E, Saladin, yeah. Comments, Lami said, I think I remember Elijah Mom calling Vietnamese and Japanese the brown seed. Yeah, some of the East Asians were, it depends though, but with the older gods that I built with, the Japanese are always considered the yellow seed. You know, definitely the Japanese and the Chinese, you know what I mean? It was always like that. The father kept it simple. He kept it simple without all this other stuff. You know, he said that, you know, if other people have red and stuff, they were taught red and things like that. I wasn't taught that. I don't use it. And I think it's also, it's a little arbitrary because to me, it causes confusion with the history of the indigenous, you know? And so it becomes a bad teaching tool to me, you know?
Yeah,
so.
because red, brown, yellow, you really look at it's not, you know, it's yellow and red is there, but it's
the reddish hue of the indigenous is still within the spectrum of brown. So as a color, it technically is in the spectrum of brown. So it's still, you know, it just is a little confusing to me. So I wasn't taught that, so I don't use it though, you know. So
plus it was 600 years, so it's black, brown, and yellow.
Right. That's the way I was taught. It was black, brown, yellow. You know what I mean? And I don't think that there's nothing that Elijah teaches that goes against the black, brown, yellow, white. Like black, brown, yellow is the process, and then white. You know. But
some guards in here have even told me that red is a seed and that white is a seed too.
Well, I don't see the red because it's just the over classification. But the truth is that the white is a seed because it is planted, though. You know what I'm saying? It's just grafted. You know what I mean? Just like they have a brain and they have a mind to a certain extent, right? So everything is a seed. It's all right. They're all living. They're all human. That's why the father took out skunk in this wisdom degree, you know, because he's like, we're not trying to rob them of their humanity. We're just saying from the wickedness. You know what I mean? And that's why I don't do like he's the god of his own world, nothing like that. No, he's just you know, don't give him all of that hype, you know. But he is a man, you know. He is a man, you know. Right. That's right, Islam. Yeah. Mr. G1 said speaking of the flag, I've been doing analysis too. What does the correct flag look like? My understanding is that the correct flag has the moon showing over the 7 out of the 3. Out of the understanding flag, Shamgar design, the one father chose is the moon showing over the 7. That's supposed to one mostly using the showing 7. What do you like? I'm just what do you want to wear? Right? What do you want to wear? Because the first flags, though, they didn't have the moon over the 7. and that could be seen as a mistake because they had manufactured them like that, and things like that. I really, after all these years, it's really not too important with me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I seen them both ways, under the 7 and
Under
on top of
and
the
on
7.
top, yeah.
When we was in the front one time. Let me tell you a little thing about that. Supreme, you know the God Supreme that be doing the security right here. So he was telling the God. So what you mean if the moon is over the 7? My wisdom can't, because he's a short God. So he said, so what you mean? My wisdom can't be taller than me? Like literally, like, you know what I'm saying? Brothers need to stop taking things literally.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Things in 120 as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the build gets a little like, over the top that it has to. Halftime. If I may add on to that response, what can you show and prove? I don't know who you're asking. I don't know what am I supposed to, are you asking me what I'm supposed to show and prove? That's like mad generic, right? Show and prove my existence, show and prove the flag. Like, well, I don't know what. The truth is that the flag had, like, the history of the flag. The truth is that the first ones, I'm just gonna keep talking because I don't know what you mean. Okay, halftime, yeah. The first flags had the 7, the moon over with the 7. You know what I mean? Aesthetically, if you were drawing, you wouldn't keep it on behind. Like, you would be drawing everything so it can make sense, and that's how they interpreted it. Yeah, it ain't no thing. Like, like.
And then a lot of brothers get into that with the flag.
Yeah, because I have my flag, which I've had for many years. It has it isn't the moon under the 7. It's the moon at the same length, at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
So I have it like that. Sometimes it's just a look of aesthetics, though, but I don't really find like a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Because technically, when you really think about it, the real big deal is that this flag is 3-dimensional. And so it's not about the moon being over, right? It's like if we were walking and you were behind me, but you were taller than me. That's all you're seeing. The real reality of the 7 now is that it's in front, not that it is, because they're not next to each other. One is in front of each other. So people arguing about something that isn't even the logic. The point is that you're supposed to be thinking about the flag 3-dimensionally, because the flag represents the family. What is the family led by? In other words, that 7 represents it. The 7 actually is not God, technically. God is the Son. The 7 represents the all of the reality that they bring out. What is the reality that the family pushes out? And it's the reality of God, all under God. You know what I mean? That's why we could say nation of gods and earth. And we don't have to include every single thing. We don't have to include white people, banjos, tigers, lions, bears, street lamps, poles, countries, mountains, planets, stars, right? Everything is under that. Everything is under God, right? So you could, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
7 is your center of your 8-point sun.
Exactly, God. Like that's the mentality that's always coming out. You know what I mean? That's the way I see it, though. You know what I'm saying? It's not a double God, like as far as the individual. You know what I mean? 7 does mean God, but think of the flag logically. It's the sun, moon, and star representing man, woman, child. Man is God, so he's already on the flag. He isn't on the flag just twice. It is that the whole family lives out the reality of God, the mentality that projects out. This is a 3-dimensional flag. Okay, it is the arguments of the 7 and the moon and stuff. It's not, the 7 is out in front. Think of the flag 3-dimensionally. If you have the family on there, which you have the black man, which you have God as the son, then why would it would be redundant with the 7. You see? That 7, though, is the mentality, is that black family, all they exude is what? The reality of all things. All things are represented by what? God, the mind.
Everything will project as God projects it. As we create, all things are created. All things counter-create and are productive within that creation. That's what the flag is. So arguing about like aesthetics though, and most of these arguments came about because people just had difficulties designing, or the artistry wasn't that great. Like, you know, they thought of these things later and stuff. And then, you know, they just came with a consistency. If we agree to a consistency, that's peace. But people forget, not even thinking about like what this flag is supposed to represent, you know, that we always think mathematically, and it always is God-centered. Because out of all the mathematics, right? Out of all the mathematics, all the degrees, right? All of us, though, are living. We could say that the sun, the man, is 1. We could say that that moon representing the woman is going to be 0 because it represents what will always allow everything to be, like the forum of infinity, like what it is always going to continue, right? And technically, if we're dealing with the child, we could say it represents all of the degrees, all mathematics. However, if the 7 is chosen to be that one that is representing out, why? Because not only is this flag a representation of us and what we teach what? We teach about who the true and living God is. So as if a flag represents what a nation is about, then that would be the number you would choose. If a flag represents what digit would represent all that we exude, it would be, well, everything that God is. So it would be that. So you got to think about what a flag actually is supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? That's what a flag is. He's not thinking about it. But I don't know how people look at this flag and they don't think of it 3-dimensionally. It's actually, you know, like the sun.
Sometimes you have the universal flag
you know,
with the man,
to put it,
the child, and the woman.
If you build this, hopefully maybe one of the youth will build this for show and proof. The actual flag, right, is actually supposed to be built like a diorama, like, you know, like a whole solar system build. Like you would have your sun, moon, and then the star. It would be like this: 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then the sun. And the sun is like exuding. It's almost like the ancient crowns on the kings that had the rays coming, but they were coming out of the cobra, because the cobra is in a striking position from the crown, and then you see rays. People think they're absorbing rays. No, the actual crown is giving off an energy. People just assume when they analyze it, that it's just getting rays of the sun. But you could argue it could be both. You know what I mean? But I hope that makes sense, though, right? Because that's what you'd say. Okay. If there's confusion, just ask for what I'm saying, though, you know? But everything that we wear, like, yo, all the symbols you wear should mean something. You know what I mean? And I'm saying that for somebody. I rock a lot of symbols. You know what I'm saying? I rock a lot of symbols, you know? So I'm always aware, like, what these symbols mean. Like, you know, if I'm rocking things with the low lives, then I'm making sure that it's about hip hop and keeping it to that positivity. If I'm rocking things like the many Chinese and Kung Fu symbols, like the
that's what I meant to ask
the
you.
yin and yang and all that, then it all means something.
The
you know?
the days on your.
For us, though, the way we were taught, these are mala beads, right? Mala beads, they usually as a chain, because they would have like 106 beads or whatever, and they would be counting the different prayers, and they call them prayers, but they would really be those aphorisms and stuff. And it developed where it becomes a religion, and it's really prayers in a lot of the Buddhist sects that you find, right? When we were learning our Sigang is a Buddhist and has a Buddhist mentality, but we were wearing the beads as he instructed us, but not for counting prayer. We were wearing these beads because they hurt. It's a weapon, and it's a fashionable weapon. That's really what he was wearing. You know, so it became that. It's real simple. That's the answer.
Yeah, because I see a lot of.
You know what I mean?
I seen brothers wearing them.
A lot of people wear them. They became fashion though. But when we started wearing this, nobody was wearing it. nobody was rocking this with like hip hop clothes and nothing like that. We was rocking this like in the 2000s. But we're rocking this because when you strike, it bangs. Just like we're rocking the bangles. These are things that karate masters get. The God Raja gave me these. You know what I mean? These things hurt. So I rock them. You know what I mean? As fashion, you know. So we learn like how to be functional with them. But a lot of times though, the mala beads, if you see a Buddhist, that's what they do. When they rub the beads, they're rubbing because it's keeping a count.
Okay.
You know, and they're counting. You know, and that's why you see Muslims do the same thing. They'll count select prayers with the beads.
Yeah, I see them when they be praying.
Yeah, when they're doing that, it's because they're counting.
Yeah,
know?
they count.
And they might be holding it because it might be a prayer that they're having difficulty with anything. You know, same thing, right? We technically could do the same thing if we took 120 beads and we just started.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Right? We might need 122, right? 122, right? But we could do the same thing, though. Although it would look mysterious.
Yeah, well,
you know?
like you praying to a mystery.
Yeah, and
you're going through your lessons.
Right, yeah, you know. So the way things look and everything like that, you know what I mean? But now it became fashion, so everybody wears them, and they don't even know a damn thing about nothing. You know what I mean? About what it is or anything like that. You know. For me though,
ancient culture, like Buddha, right?
Right. To me, a lot of the ancient culture, a lot of the ancient texts are what I really have an affinity for. So continuing to wear the beads was something that I was okay with, you know what I mean? Because a lot of those texts mean a lot to me. You know what I mean? Peace-born knowledge, right? 100. Thank you. I said 106, right? Yeah, it's been a minute. You know? But yeah. If y'all have builds or questions, let me know. I want to open something here. Where is it?
Yeah, that's interesting, God, that, you know, that I heard you said that you wrote degrees on, you know, as far as like, you know, us being involved with the hip hop culture at an early stage. That's good for a lot of us to know, because a lot of people that's like, especially this generation that's coming up right now in Puerto Rico with the reggaeton and rap and stuff like that, they might not even know the history of over here, the Bronx,
Right.
how much we was involved. You know what I'm saying? In the break dancing.
Right, we're absolutely
and
as a community, we're co-creators. You know what I mean? And that's not really acknowledged, you know, by some people. You know what I mean? Other places it is. You know what I mean? It's a fact, but you know, it's with our own people, right? Because it was advertised like, yo, they have hip hop, those people, and you have your blank. You know, they used to try to do that with freestyle. Like you have hip hop, they have hip hop, we have freestyle, and then we was like, nah, we don't want that shit.
But it's our ethnic group of Puerto Ricans, God, that invented rap in Spanish too.
Oh,
because
absolutely, they were the first ones to be exposed to it. Yeah,
they was the first ones that actually came out with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, our ethnic group, like, you know what I'm saying, started in Puerto Rico, and you know, and then other Latin countries adapted to it. But we were the first ones.
It's a shame though that it got bastardized first, you know, through us though, you know, because most people think that Puerto Ricans, you know, their thing is reggaeton and African Americans is hip hop. That's far from the case.
And reggaeton is really like new music for this ever, because hip hop in Spanish was like in the early 90s.
Yeah.
89 already. They was doing it on wax.
That's right. And it was straight bars. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't sing song chants and shit like that. Right? You know what I mean? Where hip hop is giving light to our nation, of course. You know what I mean? Of course. Just like that, many of the gods was there when it was starting. You know what I mean? And they were influencing. You know?
I see footage of old Cool Herc parties, and you see the god on the dance floor with with the tassel. He getting down, dog.
Yeah,
He on the dance floor.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
He's doing.
I had a class years ago, and it was dope because Cool Herc came into the class.
Okay.
You know, and it was really, you know, out of nowhere. I didn't expect it, and my students failed me that day because they couldn't figure out who he was.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody guessed Africa Bambaataa, and it was like, and he was like, oh man, you know, and others didn't know. So, but it was a good teaching point. But he was saying that, you know, the gods was there from the beginning, and they were the ones that protected his speakers.
Yeah.
That's what he said. You know what I mean? And that's where that standing on the square became a thing in the b-boy stance, because the gods were standing on the square keeping the peace. You know what I mean? Yeah, a lot of people don't know that it was really the peace generated between Puerto Ricans and blacks that led to more culture being diffused. And then Bambaataa taking that cultural link of unity between the gangs and all that killing and all of the activism, right? By people like the Together Brothers and others who were Puerto Rican, and then merging that with hip hop and making it a movement. You know what I'm saying? So Herc is the father of that music with the breakbeat, which is monumental, but it's Bambaataa that makes it like a culture, something you do, something you go someplace and you do all the things that we already do. We're gonna call it all this. So big.
Zulu Nation. Zulu Nation is did they get the lessons from us?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they were taking pieces and language and everything. Because remember, Bambaataa's whole Zulu Nation is actually coming out of the activism of Puerto Ricans and blacks in the 60s into the 70s, right? So once he just has an artistic lane, he can unify these people because they were already looking to be unified. He didn't have to do all that work. He was continuing as an organizer, you know, and as a person continuing that work, he was able to do that. Now, for all of Bam's extra things and what he became and the pedophilia charges and all that, the truth is that he did that. No one can say that he didn't do that. So, you know, he took that power, that thing that he built, and if he abused it, that's a different story, you know? But the truth is that he made it a viable culture where everything is under one flag, which is, you know, it's a really big deal. And it's a big deal because this is something in line that's influenced by the gods, because we were the ones that were talking about unity of all the different original peoples, and it started to permeate to people and in the activism that people were dealing with, you know? So that's where that research is not really there, because a lot of people aren't here and they're not, you know.
So right, God, for myself, right? I was watching this program called The Get Down. So when I started seeing Africa Bambaataa, and it was like, what's the name of this nation? Zulu, right? And who's gonna get on down? Bambaataa, right? Bambaataa. So everybody's screaming. So the girl's telling the guys, you know, to cheer on or whatever. So then in one part, I hear black man come out building. He's saying, righteousness is for the unrighteousness. You know what I'm saying? We gotta do right. You know what I'm saying? Like it sounded like a bill, like if somebody was building from our nation, and I was like, that's what we say. You know what I'm saying?
Remember that
wicked actions is for the unrighteous. We do righteousness. So I was like, oh, okay. So they got it from, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, the language that we building with, a lot of people say it. You know what I'm saying? It's permeated. You know what I'm saying?
You don't feel hot in here, God? It's like I feel the air, but it's a little.
Yeah, it's good to me.
No, it's good, but you know, it's starting to get like caliente.
Yeah. These walls don't seal much air. You know what I mean? Like, they don't. The AC goes on, but it doesn't seal it in. You know what I'm saying? That's good. I'm good. I'm actually cold, but I've been here a long time. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, you'd be surprised. Like I always tell brothers, like everything, nearly everyone I know about is a generalization, but
Mm.
of the underground that has existed of new artists since the 2010s, I probably know 90% of those people personally. So, and write about them, you know, because I'm writing about all this and have covered it and written books about it. So, just my own involvement with stuff has influenced people's lyrics that aren't in this nation. You know what I'm saying? Peace, peace.
Peace.
Right?
I'm out.
That's peace, God.
Okay, peace.
All right.
Likewise, God. Right? So, brothers will ask me, like, they'll ask me about an MC, like, yo, is he the God? Like, they're kind of like trying to, maybe they might be mad or not like that. And I'm like, yo, it's good because they don't all have to be in this nation to learn righteousness, though, and to have righteousness as a language of their own nature. And that's one thing that we can't be all so restrictive. A lot of the things that we say that is our dialect actually are right and exact, meaning that they're the best way to express that concept. So when we see other people use that language, they're not always just trying to bastardize to sound cool. They really agree with it. You know what I'm saying? So they adhere to it, you know? And that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? It's not, you know, that's good. You know? Oh, Self-Magnetic just came on. Yeah. The God, Sun God said peace.
Peace, God.
All right. Oh, okay, you question IG? I'm actually not logged in. Let me open the IG and shit. Some people throw questions on the on my Facebook and the other social media. Okay. All right, I'm finding it. I'm looking. I'm finding. Why the first post on Instagram got Dark Kim doing pull-ups? Some science on that. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me just write something quickly to someone. Okay. All right. The guy said, quick questions, maybe somewhat trivial. No, they don't. Can't. How do you address a white 5%er? Can't say peace, God, earth, since they are not original. Let's see. You know, usually I don't know. I always say peace. I just say peace. You know what I'm saying? If I know their name, then I say their name. You know what I mean? Like, how do you address? If I don't know them, though, how do you address people you don't know? Right? You don't go peace human, right? You don't go peace human. So what would be the most aesthetic? Because I've taught white people this knowledge and not. So if they're really about it, like they're really, or just, you know, righteous people, I mean, you know, and I'm down with them like that. I might even say peace, my brother, because they're my brother in the knowledge. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're really doing that. You know what I'm saying? And I got a couple of white people that are like brothers to me, right? That I consider like brothers. But not like a brigade and shit, but you know, it is what it is, right? They're anomalies, you know. The righteous white man is an anomaly. But yeah, you wouldn't call him God and earth, though, you know, like the brother Justice, he's white and he got knowledge, right? I know his name, so I just say peace, Justice, you know, right? Obviously, people be having such a, you know, like some people have a bad dialect, so they always.
Me,
I be saying peace, justice, and sometimes we call him God too because he be. But I'm not supposed to call him God. Slip,
and that's
you know what I'm
because
saying? But
we're
it's
so
just-
used to
yeah.
speaking and saying that.
And
So
he be
it's a
adding
good-
on.
it's a good
Mhm.
it's a good test for us though to always remember that
Keep it in
everything,
mind.
to remember the habits of speech can betray you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But nah, you know, like, yo, honestly, like, look, you things to say, like, you know, my man, you know, peace, my man, that's my man, you know, like, that's my man, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, no, I definitely, you know, wouldn't say God on earth, you know what I mean? The second question, the God self-magnetic guy, is like, I heard about firstborn Prince salading. I think that would be doing salat in Allah school of Mecca. Do you know why he did those things? Is that the reason why Muslim gods think it's okay to do what they do and still be a part of this? Just to clear my thoughts. I'll answer the second one, then the first. Yes, whatever they think Prince did that was religiously Islamic, as far as the religion, they use that as a justification, and they used the supposed Islamic religiosity of firstborn Prince to justify a lot of the incorrect history and interpretation, really, that is in the second In the Name of Allah book that Wakil wrote, right? And wackest righteous name ever. But yeah, anyway, the point being, did firstborn Prince do things? I think Prince is misunderstood because a lot of people don't understand, though, a lot of Eastern teachings. A lot of times, I'll look at it this way, right? If people are in my household, like they see what I do, they would also say, Sunnis, you seem religious the way you do certain things because I have very set ways of doing things, you know, or I have set ways to ignite, you know what I'm saying? So if I'm training by myself, though, I still bow, you know, to the statues I have, like my little old man kung fu statue, whatever it is, and it's ways of sparking the focus. You know what I'm saying? In other words, do as he does, or the spirit that, or I think about my teacher when I see that. You know, it would be the same as like pictures. You know, the pictures that we have. But what I'm saying is that the rituals that we engage in, or that we make up for ourselves, to actually function very efficiently, that's what you call ascetic. You know what I mean? And most religious people are very ascetic. They do set things all the time. And of course, with the religion, they expect you to do that because that's how you keep the morals and ethics in play. Mm-hmm. So a person that really adheres, they are what's called an ascetic person. Okay. In many of my life, though, the way I keep my schedule, the way I write certain things down, the way I do certain things is seen to be very ascetic as well by some people. You know what I mean? It's just efficient. It's mathematical. It's engaged. It's used to spark. You know what I'm saying? Just like when people are training and they do kung fu, like I said, I'm not going to fight nobody and do some crazy stuff, right? In fact, I don't want them to know I know all that. So I wouldn't make it look like kung fu. But when I'm training, I'm going to do stuff to ignite and get the energy out of me. You know what I'm saying? Get the feeling, get into the vibe, like all of these kind of things to spark that creative nature. The ascetic nature that he chose, that he was dealing with, was because he was learning everything about where the Islam he got and all of its roots. That was his studies. So he went into a lot of the Islam, so much so that he learned Arabic. Firstborn Prince.
Oh, okay.
Now, he, like, just the achievement of that and being able to read the Quran, the entire Quran in Arabic,